Hello and welcome. Let me first take this precious opportunity to welcome all the delegates and participants from Future Group of Institute. Let me once again take this golden opportunity to extend my greetings from Ghana, which is a country of West Africa. My name is Pintu Maity. I'm working as a country head for a pharmaceutical company called Vitane Pharma GmbH, which is a pharmaceutical company based in Germany. Apart from Germany, we also have our corporate office in Dubai and USA. As far as my educational qualification is concerned, I'm a pharmacy graduate from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Science. I'm also an MBA in marketing. I'm also a proud member of Leaders Excellence at Harvard Square, Cambridge. I also got several opportunities to directly participate and actively involve in some remarkable workshops and conferences conducted by some of the prestigious organizations and institutions. Prominent among them are United Against Malaria, a partnership strategy conducted by Johns Hopkins University in collaboration with Blumark School of Public Health. I've also been engaged by Ministry of Health Ghana to participate in several workshops and conferences. Today I'd like to discuss on an ongoing global crisis. As the coronavirus pandemic continues to spread globally, I'd like to highlight its implication on current global economic and business. Secondly, the preparedness by WHO and its stakeholders such as global healthcare system to how to tackle this crisis. Thirdly, I would like to explore the ongoing developments and updates on the search for the possible COVID treatments. Okay, on the current slide, I would like to discuss on the basic understanding of the coronavirus infection. The coronavirus infection, which is also known as COVID-19, started in Wuhan, China during last part of 2019. Hence the name COVID-19, which also stands for coronavirus disease, which was initiated in the year of 2019. And the causing virus is popularly known as severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, or in short form SARS-CoV-2. This virus is also popularly known as novel virus. Okay, if we discuss the virology of this virus on the picture mentioned on this current slide, the key viral protein, which is also called spike glycoprotein, is clearly visible. Okay, here we go. We are still under the slide of basic understanding of this infection. The source of this virus is really not known or not evidenced, but the expert assert the virus had emerged from a seafood market in Wuhan, China. The main mode of transmission is through respiratory droplets, which either lands on a surface or maybe directly be spread through eye, mouth, nose unknowingly. So the virus can be easily contracted or transmitted among human beings. But the spread of this virus through other living animals are not very clearly evident. On 30th January 2020, WHO triggered its highest global emergency alert by declaring this coronavirus infection a public health emergency of international concern, and subsequently it has been declared as pandemic on 11th March 2020. Let's talk about the global data and science. As on 1st May 2020, the available data sourced from WHO's website, the total number of confirmed cases were 3.25 million. The total number of deaths recorded were 231,000, and the number of patients recovered were 1.01 million. Now, in general, and as per the available data, the majority of the infected individual has recovered. And the truth is that these recoveries had happened without minimal medical attention. But yes, those are aged above 60 years or have any underlying medical condition, which also known as comorbidity like cardiovascular disease or diabetes, are always in a high risk group. And mainly they need medical supervision. And this fact is clearly evident on this pyramid. Okay, here you go. On the next slide, let's have a discussion on common signs and symptoms of COVID-19. The very early and very common symptoms of these infections are fever, dry cough, fatigue, shortness of breath, loss of smell, muscle and joint aches are also very common. Yeah. So on the current slide, we would like to explore the testing and diagnosis options that's available for this particular disease, COVID-19. Currently, we have two types of tests available for the detection of COVID-19. That's a mainly molecular testing or serological testing. But in many countries, mild cases or asymptomatic cases are not being tested to make the current testing system less complicated. So below are the current detection options that are available for this deadly infection. Number one is from the sign and symptoms that one exhibited. Number two, reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction. Third, from CT scan of chest to determine the extent of damage in lungs, especially in the case of ARDS, which is also known as acute respiratory distress syndrome. In those particular cases, there is accumulation of fluid normally happens in the lungs. So the supply of the oxygen to the other organs get disrupted. The fourth option that we have is also known as serological test to detect the antibodies for COVID-19. Okay, on this current slide, we will try and discuss the basic principle of both molecular testing and serological testing. Molecular testing is basically a virus derived testing. Here, DNA derived from the patient sample, which is collected in the form of nasal swab. Further, these derived DNAs are amplified. Subsequently, the different dyes are being used to detect the genes of the virus. Where in case of serological testing, which basically a blood derived test, where the spleen from the patient produce IgM. IgM is the first antibody that body produced to fight coronavirus, and the technique used here is called ELISA test. Now let's check the advantage and disadvantage of both molecular testing and serological testing. The advantage of molecular testing is that it gives early detection with quick processing time, and it's highly selective and specific. While the disadvantages are that it requires skilled personnel and equipments. This does not tell you if the virus is still alive. It cannot detect those who have been infected and later recovered. But in case of serological testing, the advantages are that it's a very rapid test which is available at the point of care with very low cost. It also can be used to test the large populations and it's a reliable test. While the disadvantage of serological testing are it cannot detect if patient is contagious or if the patient infection is still present. With serological test, there is also a chance to produce a false negative result if patient has a deferred immune response. On the current slide, we'll discuss on the prevention of COVID-19. To prevent the spread of COVID-19, we need to follow the basic preventive care like cleaning of hands, often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, frequently using an alcohol-based hand rub or hand sanitizer, which specially contains 70% of isopropyl alcohol. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Do not touch your eyes, nose, and mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or with a tissue when you are coughing or sneezing. Stay home if you are feeling unwell. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulties in breathing or any other early symptoms of COVID-19, seek immediate medical attention. Follow the directives of your local health authorities. On the next slide, we have a picture on the COVID-19 prevention tips, which is a self-explanatory. Management of mild or asymptomatic COVID-19 patient. The first and foremost, and most importantly, any sign and symptoms for COVID-19 has to be reported to the local health authorities. For basic management for the mild symptoms are as below. over the counter medication for the symptomatic management, drinking of plenty fluids, resting sufficiently. Boosting immunity is very important to fight any infection. To boost immunity, we need to have vitamin C, which is well known for strengthening the immunity. Zinc is always well known for its antiviral activities. Vitamin D boosts the immunity. So one must have minimum 30 minutes of regular direct sun exposure to get sufficient vitamin D synthesized in the body. Vitamin E too also known for fighting the inflammation. Green vegetables are also healthy. Oxygen therapy for the patient exhibiting the symptoms of acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is also known as ARDS. On the current slide, we would like to discuss on the implications of COVID-19 on global business and economy. The coronavirus is now a global pandemic, which is currently a critical and dramatic crisis. And the current dynamics of global socio-economics is a complex subject to analyze and forecast. The global healthcare system has been negatively affected much harder than ever. A lot of grey side and unpreparedness of global healthcare infrastructure has been exposed. This corona has led to a volatile economy. The global economy is currently in a standing position as the basic principle of the economical exchange is now in a paralyzed state due to a heavy disruption of supplies and demand. It can be rightly described as an economic shock, but there are numerous other factors also at a play. Almost around 3.28 million Americans filed for unemployment. So we are continuing on the same topic where we are discussing the impact of COVID-19 on global business and economics. There is also the possibility of a startup depression where new companies will not enter the job market because of the pandemic. The knowledge workers still have a ray of hope as the currently digital economy is least affected in compared with the other industries. Those heavily depends on human resources like working by hands, delivery, construction and all those industries. Future of travel industry is still in a dilemma as a CO drop in the patronage is expected in near future. Though it will indirectly have some positive impact in global environment. Dependency on digital platforms will have a definite rise, where many meetings, signing agreements, interviews, conferences, workshops, all those things can be done digitally by avoiding extensive meeting or extensive travel or one-to-one meeting. COVID-19 is classically a global challenge. This would be the time to unite, as this virus does not discriminate based on color, wealth, caste, religion, or nationalities. On current scenario, some of the countries has led by the example for the rest of the world to know how promptly and effectively this crisis can be managed with the best possible ways. And in my observation, those governments are mainly relied on the experts' opinion, acted earliest possible, and believed in science and data. South Korea is an example for the world, the way they handled this situation without even completely shutting down their economy, with minimum economical damage. The principle they strictly followed was DNA sequencing, mass testing, contact tracing, and isolating and treating. Okay, here we go. Now we'll be having discussion on the updates on the testing of existing drug and the development of new treatment options for COVID-19, including the development of vaccines. To date, there is no specific medicine recommended to prevent or to treat COVID-19. Many specific treatments are under investigation and will be tested through clinical trials. It usually takes about many years to develop a vaccine, and there is no guarantee of success on the development of a vaccine, as many of decade-old vaccines development are still underway. But in the current scenario, the global pharmaceutical and biotechnological industry is not leaving a single stone unturned, and the world is very optimistic. Many of the prospective vaccines and the treatment options can be proved as a potential treatment option. Several drugs are being developed and tested for the treatment of novel coronavirus. The development of the treatment option can be classified as testing of the existing drug, discovery of new drugs, plasma therapy, stem cell therapy, and development of vaccines. Clinical trial to explore the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine with and without azithromycin. University of Washington School of Medicine conducting a randomized controlled trial of two drug regime, hydroxychloroquine with azithromycin. This is to evaluate the effectiveness against SARS-CoV-2 and also to establish the safety profile. This particular trial excluded the patients with underlying cardiac, kidney, and liver disease. All the volunteers in this trial are enrolled into three arms. The first group received hydroxychloroquine, second group received hydroxychloroquine with azithromycin, the third groups are given placebo. The dose recommendation here is 400 mg hydroxychloroquine has been given as a stat on the day 1, followed by 200 mg 2 times a day on subsequent days, where azithromycin was given as 500 mg on day 1, followed by 250 mg once a day for 4 more days. The outcome of this trial is expected to be out by July. University of Washington School of Medicine, in collaboration with NYE Langone Health, is also currently conducting a study on the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine in preventing the transmission in people exposed to the virus. So on the current slide, we'll talk about the treatment option by using an antiviral drug called remdesivir. Remdesivir is already an existing drug which was using during the Ebola time. Remdesivir is an antiviral drug which exhibited some sort of hope against SARS-CoV-2 in vitro and also effective in vivo in infected mice. The mechanism of action of remdesivir is by effective blocking key viral protein, which also known as spike glycoprotein of SARS-CoV-2 virus. Okay, so there are several other antiviral drugs are on development or on clinical trial. The two another antiviral drugs are lopinavir and ritonavir. They also act against SARS-CoV-2 by blocking the key viral protein, which is also known as spike glycoprotein of SARS-CoV-2. As per the research published online in Science on April 22, two novel antiviral compounds have been developed in China, which are exhibiting some antiviral activity against SARS-CoV-2. This study was conducted by Professor Liu Hang and Professor Ye Chun from Shanghai Institute of Materia Medica, Professor Yang from Shanghai Institute of Advanced Immunochemical Studies, and Professor Zhang from Wuhan Institute of Virology of CAS. Okay, so on the current slide, we'll be talking about the option of plasma therapy. As per an article published on Clinical Trial Arena, a randomized trial has been approved by UK government to test the effectiveness of plasma therapy on treating SARS-CoV-2. In this particular trial, the plasma from a patient who recovered from COVID-19 for at least 21 days will be used to treat newly infected patients. As the plasma will be consisting the antibodies which can potentially identify SARS-CoV-2 virus and can mitigate its growth. Stem cell therapy. Memorial Hermann Texas Medical Center to conduct a randomized study with 120 participants to evaluate the outcome of stem cell therapy. COVID-19 patients with ARDS, which also known as acute respiratory distress syndrome, is a very serious condition of the lungs where the accumulation of the fluid takes place inside the lungs, which followed by the disruption of oxygen supply, having 60% of death rate. Mesenchymal stem cells are very much capable to modulate the inflammatory response that plays a key role in the development of ARDS. Okay, so now we will be talking about one of the most important slide in concerning the ongoing crisis. This is regarding updates on the vaccine development. There is a lot of the company across the world currently working on the development of the vaccine. Some are RNA derived, some are DNA derived. But as per an article published in Wall Street Journal, the pharmaceuticals and the trial conducting companies are facing unusual ethical difficulties, including finding enough study subject due to the ongoing lockdown in major cities across the world. Oxford vaccine. One of the most promising vaccine development is currently under trial. Is from Oxford University, in which the pharma giant AstraZeneca is also extended their association. This vaccine has been developed from a common flu-causing virus that mainly seen in infected chimpanzee. Further modification has been done so that no replication will take place inside the human bodies. The protein from SARS-CoV-2 spike glycoprotein has been also added artificially so that it will trigger an immunoresponse inside the human body against the real SARS-CoV-2. Currently, there's a two volunteers were injected. One is with the vaccine and the second one is with the control. Total 1,110 people will take part in this study. Oxford is very optimistic about the positive outcome of this trial and they want to make sure that this vaccine is available by September. Okay, some other remarkable vaccine developments are underway, like linear clinical research from Australia. There's also a company called Clover Biopharmaceuticals. A China based company is developing a vaccine called COVID-19 A streamer. Moderna is the first company to initiate phase 1 clinical trial for its RNA based vaccine. Inovio Pharmaceutical started the phase 1 clinical trial for a DNA based vaccine. Novavax Inc. is a vaccine company headquartered in Maryland is also working on the vaccine development. Johnson & Johnson is also an American multinational corporation which is also working on its development of vaccine. Sanofi SA is a French multinational pharmaceutical company headquartered in France, Paris, also working on the development of a COVID vaccine. I would like to thank each one of you for your valuable time today. I'm very humble and overwhelmed for such a honor. Being a pharmacist myself, I would like to extend my best wishes to all of you for your coming future. I came across a quote somewhere sometimes ago, which was actually very relevant to our profession, and that was, it is easy to get 1,000 prescription, but hard to get one single remedy. So all we have a great responsibilities ahead of us. On this note, I would also like to thank all the medical professionals for their selfless sacrifice on fighting the current ongoing crisis. Thank you each of you once again. Take care. Bye bye.